And it's like, oh my gosh. And then the thing is, it's suited just for you. Whatever you watch, that's what it knows. The algorithm is suited just for Lisa. It's like a fingerprint. Your TikTok is going to be totally different than mine. Yours is going to be totally different. It's a whole like, oh my gosh, it's incredible.
You are entering the Urban Suite with Dr. Lisa LaCon. Let's talk about urban issues plaguing our community. Let's talk about mental health. Let's talk about sex.
Hello. You have landed. You have entered into the Urban Suite with me, Dr. Lisa LaCon. Welcome. Listen, we are almost through the second month of 2024. In a couple of days, February will be done. It will be a wrap. And then we're entering into month number 3. I'm telling you, this year is going to go by so fast. So tonight we're talking about what we discussed in this month of February 2024, this recap, and what lessons did we learn? Oh my goodness. So after a word from our sponsor, Blessed Ministries Incorporated, as well as our missing person, we will be right back with the recap of February 2024 lessons learned. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
So introduce yourself real quick.
Hi, my name is Diana. I work at Blessed Ministries. And if you're interested in the Forklift Training class, come down on Wednesdays at 9:30 a.m. to sign up for the class.
But what does it take do they have to have any credentials? Do you need a high school diploma?
No, just an ID and a social.
Okay.
Okay?
And you get fully certified?
Yes, well, how that works is the instructor comes down, you do in-class instruction for about 2 hours, and once you obtain a job doing forklifting, they come out to the site directly, show you exactly how to operate the machinery, you get your certification, and it's an OSHA certified certification through the state.
Okay. And the training is done where? Is it done here?
It's done at 23 Branford Place, which is our building, Branford Blessed Ministries, and also at 990, which is the Department of Labor's unemployment office.
All right.
Okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so we are back, and welcome to the Urban Suite with me, Dr. Lisa LaCon, where you will find us on Amazon, Apple, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google, Samsung Podcast, as well as LinkedIn. So this is my main platform, YouTube, but I'm also on Facebook. So every time I do a live, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesdays, I always do my missing persons. This segment is so important to me, and I hope it's important to you as well. So who do we have tonight? We have Christine Janae Sigler. Now, she is 12 years old. She's 12 years old, and she's been missing from Sumter, South Carolina, since February the 25th, 2024. Now, I totally get that this is the 27th. It's only been 2 days, but for a 12-year-old, missing for an hour is too long. Missing for 30 minutes is too long. All right. So Christine Janae Sigler, missing from Sumter, South Carolina. Listen, you folks that live in Sumter, I need you to pay attention. I need you to share this information. Definitely. Again, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Apple, Samsung, Google, all of those podcasts, as well as LinkedIn. I need you to share this information. And guess what? When you share, you don't have to pay anything. You just hit the share button, and that's all you have to do. This is someone's child, 12 years old, female from Sumter, South Carolina. She is Black. Her complexion is medium. Her height is 5'5". She's 90 pounds. Her hair color is black. Her hair length is medium, and her eye color is brown. All right. This is very important. 12 years old. I cannot imagine my 12-year-old, if I had a 12-year-old, missing for more than 30 minutes. All right. So this is her location last seen. Christine was last seen on Sunday, February 25th, 2024, around 8 p.m., walking away from the family's home on Hawk Street in South Sumter, South Carolina. She was walking home or walking from her home at 8 o'clock at night. That's odd. Anyone with information, please contact the Sumter Police Department. And that number is, listen, for my audio podcast, I'm going to say it slow. I'm going to be really slow because I need you to get this. 803, that is the area code, 803-436-2700. Again, 803, that is the area code, 436-2700. Or you can contact the Black and Missing Foundation Incorporated, and their telephone number is 877-97-BAMFI. Now, if you're like me and you're like, what is BAMFI? What is that? Like, what numbers are that? What is that? It's 22634. 22634. Please, let's pray for her safe recovery, her safe return, as we pray for Christine Janae Sigler. Sometimes this missing person thing really gets me, because as a mother of 4, as a lover of humanity, I'm like, where in the world can she be? What is happening with when the 12-year-olds just disappear? The little girl was sitting on the bus, the school bus, left the bus, and now she disappeared. That happened in Detroit. I highlighted her last week. Still no word. And sometimes, unfortunately, it's people closest to that child or to the situation, whether it be a parent, a neighbor, something, I don't know. But please, 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 please share this information. All right, so I don't need my glasses on right now. So this part of the show is going to be very interesting because it is still Black History Month. We are still in the month of February. So I'm going to highlight something for you all that is near and dear to my heart during this Black History Month. And before I begin, I want to say this. This is very interesting. I had the opportunity to go to the Virginia Black Film Festival this weekend at Hampton University. And it was amazing. Amazing. it was the first one of its kind, in a sense. So hopefully it will not be the last. The Virginia Black Film Festival. And in the film festival, we had master classes, we had short films, documentaries, independent filmmakers. It was fantastic. And one of the honorees is Clifton Powell. Kirk Nice, do you know Clifton Powell?
Clifton Powell. Nope, I'm not familiar with that name. No.
Okay, so he's an actor. He's been acting for a very, 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 very long time. And if you see his picture, you'll be like, oh, okay, yeah. I know who he is. He played in Ray. He was the one that was stealing the money.
Oh, yeah. The dark-skinned dude.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I'm just saying.
I'm glad you said that. Oh my goodness. I'm glad
with the mustache. With the mustache.
That is correct.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Right. So he's from Washington, D.C.
Mm-hmm.
So he was talking about his experience growing up in Washington, D.C. as a dark-skinned brother.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I would tell people growing up in Washington, D.C., as a young child with my complexion, I was not seen as, I would say, attractive.
Wait. They was considered you dark-skinned?
Yes. The lighter you were, the more respect, I guess, the more, I don't know. It was just very...
Colorism.
Exactly. A lot of colorism in Washington, D.C. And he was talking about it and I could just relate. And I had a conversation with my very good friend and I was telling her when I grew up in Washington, D.C., I grew up sort of like being invisible. I felt like no one really acknowledged me. I felt like I was never heard. I felt like I never had a voice. And for me, I don't like to be assertive. My thing is, if you are inviting me, invite my whole self. You know, that's my voice. That's whatever. That's, you know, so I did not realize the greatness that I possessed. So I look back at my life now and I see that sometimes I can be extremely cynical and I have expectations of the worst because of how I grew up, not thinking I was relevant, not thinking that I was important, not thinking that, you know, that I was invisible. So I want you to play this clip about Scotland, Maryland.
Okay.
So you might have passed by the Scotland community just off Seven Locks Road and think it's just another housing development in Potomac, Maryland.
But this community has a rich history filled with generations of African-American families who have endured for more than a century to keep the land they call home.
Montgomery County's Scotland community dates back to the Reconstruction era, when newly freed African Americans were first allowed to buy property. William Dove was among the first to settle in Potomac, Maryland. He bought...
Okay, so what name did you hear?
William Dove, right? That's what it is?
That is correct.
Yeah.
William Dove is my great-grandfather.
Oh, okay.
And I never knew this information growing up. I never knew the richness of my family growing up. He was one of the first African Americans to purchase land in Montgomery County, which is a very affluent county in Maryland, Potomac. That's where Real Housewives of Potomac, in that area. And I just found this out. I just found this out maybe 5 or 7 years ago, that my great-grandfather, once he became a freed man, purchased land. I could not believe it. So people may ask, well, Lisa, your last name is LaCon. How are you a Dove? I am a Dove because my granddad is one of his children, his siblings, his children. William and Mary Dove had 16 children.
Mm.
My grandfather is number 13.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
That's a lot of kids.
That's a lot of kids. Well, they didn't have cable. They didn't have TV. Phones.
No.
You know?
There was a lot of chores and stuff to do too.
Yeah, a lot of chores, all right. So they had a lot of chores.
So they needed kids.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. To wash, clothe, to babysit, to do whatever. So my granddad had 11 children.
Mm.
So he and my grandmother had 9, and then we have 2 bonus. I have 2 bonus aunts, an aunt and an uncle. So it's 11 altogether.
Okay.
My mom is second to last. So my mom is a Dove,
okay,
who was married to Mr. Williams, hence my maiden name, Williams. I'm Lisa Williams. And then when I became married, I assumed the name of my husband, LaCon, Lisa LaCon.
But how many kids did your mother have?
My mom just has 2 of us. It's just 2. My older sister, my older sister, and myself.
How many siblings did she have?
She had 10.
Yeah, like she was coming from big family, but she was like, nah, that's okay. I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
She's like, I'm not doing all of that.
Not doing it. So yeah. Well, I wanted a big family as well. I wanted 6 children.
Mm.
I could not quite get past number 4. I got tired. It was like, okay, I can't do this. I'm done.
Yeah.
But if I would have known this growing up, my perspective of how I would have seen myself would probably be different.
Yeah.
And that's the importance of talking about your family history, what your family contributed to society. So as a result of this, the community came together. They built a church. And today, the church is still there. The community is still there. But those acres have really, they shrank because a lot of the family members, they sold their land. And they were somewhat coerced into selling their land. So let's go a little further. So this is my great-granddad, William Dove.
Bought 36 acres for $210 at a public auction. Over the next few years, more Scotland founding families bought land in what was known as Snakesden until the community adopted the name Scotland in the 1920s.
So if you realize at the end of this production, if you stay tuned to the very end, you see Snakesden production. And that is a direct result of this.
I was surrounded by history without knowing, but every day I was learning something.
Letitia Gassaway Paul's great-great-grandfather was William Dove.
The importance of the land that...
Letitia is my cousin.
We currently live on today is so significant, and I don't take it for granted. So this is the original light that my grandfather had installed in 1968.
Letitia lives in the Scotland home where her grandparents raised her. She carries the memories and the presence of her ancestors.
My ancestors lived in shacks. And them shacks, they didn't have windows, no electricity, no sewer system. How could someone do such a thing to a living being, to a human being? But it happened.
Roosevelt Twyman married into the Scotland community, and at 94, he's their oldest living resident.
Take me back to what life was like here in Scotland before these houses were built.
Life was hard before these houses were built We had to carry water from the spring, do washing and do dishes and all that. And we didn't have electric. Used to have a light a kerosene lamp every night. You know, it's for light.
Scotland was nearly uninhabitable. Most houses in this community of working, tax-paying citizens had no running water and had to cross 7 Locks Road to get it from a spring.
And it was kind of rough sometimes, so I always try to push things off that was bad. I don't think about them too much.
They had no sewer systems and had to use outhouses. They had no garbage service and no paved roads.
That felt normal to you.
It was what it was. It kind of made the best of what it was, you know what I mean?
Former Temple University and NFL running back Paul Boo Boo Palmer was raised in Scotland.
My sister's far left, my sister Tanya's far left. And that's me right there. Without a doubt, I believe that that's my great-grandmother's house, Frances Palmer. That's her home. It's the only home I ever knew until I left to go to college.
And you know, it's so interesting, these last names, Palmer, I remember the names, like sitting in the kitchen and my grandmother would say, oh, Miss Palmer or the Palmers, or I remember the names. So what happened was my granddad relocated and moved to Washington, D.C. So you have some doves that I would say migrated. They moved to Washington, D.C. Some moved to California, and then some stayed in Maryland. So we're East Coast, West Coast, but it's a whole bunch of doves. So if you even go on my Facebook, you'll see dove, 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 dove. It's that. So yeah.
There was a lot of kids, so.
It's a lot of kids.
It was
a lot of kids.
Bunch of people.
Yes.
And my grandmother, I felt like she wasn't going to miss me. She didn't say anything. She didn't cry. And as I was about to leave,
he's gonna make me cry.
You know, my great grandma came out on the porch, and I jumped out the car and I ran up there. I gave her a big hug. And I just remember her telling me she loved me. She told me she was proud of me.
And these people were just incredible. And the resiliency that they had in order to just make it from day to day and the way that they had to live was awesome.
Bernard Scott also married into Scotland. He says the community adopted him as one of their own.
You know, their surroundings were deteriorating, but they were full of love.
Bernard would sit and talk with the elders, who were only 1 or 2 generations from enslavement.
They would tell you everything, and they're full of wisdom.
At one point, Scotland was comprised of more than 500 acres of land, but developers and urban sprawl was coming.
You see those developers? You see how they look?
Yeah.
Okay, let that 500 acres
right in the middle of where they are at, like it's
always
like where it was at, you know.
Always
that neighborhood was right in the middle of it, so it's like they needed that piece of land.
Yes.
Yeah, because they surrounded.
That is their playbook.
Yeah. For this community from all sides, and some Scotland families sold their land.
You say, and many people believe, that the land that belonged to Scotland descendants was stolen from them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Because I watched it happen. I watched it happen. The developers understood that. They were dealing with people who, most of them did not graduate from high school. Most of them could not read nor write. And in fact, it was against the law for us to know how to read or write. So it became legal with a witness that if someone witnessed you put in an X, that became a legal document. But who was the witness? Was the witness somebody who was there on their behalf, or was the witness someone who was there on the other folks' behalf.
So they were taken advantage of.
Oh, they were definitely taken advantage of. We understand that black folks were always taken advantage of in some form or fashion. That the only way to get what they wanted was to do what they did.
Today, Scotland has been whittled down to just 11 acres, and out of
You see that? From 500 to 11 acres. And the housing prices around that area, $1 million homes, exclusive like shopping mall.
What kind of area is it now? Is it
It's which one? The Scotland community?
The place now, like, yeah, the area around it now. Is it black or is it white?
Predominantly white.
Okay. All right.
Predominantly white, with the rich and wealthy homes.
But there's still some affluent areas of black people, though, in Maryland, though, right?
Well, yes, but that's a different county.
That's a different area.
Okay. So, you know, every state has different counties.
But that could have been an area right there, potentially, you know.
Right.
If it would have stayed.
If it would have stayed. Again, some people moved. They sold their land. A lot of them, you know, moved to DC. Some I know in the William Dove line, some moved to California. So, you know.
Yeah.
So
he
yeah,
talks about it a little bit more, like how they got tricked out of it. He talks about it a little bit more. Yeah.
Right.
Of that, only 3 acres is still owned by Scotland families.
You know, I always kind of look back at, you know, Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, Florida, and Scotland, and I put them all in the same bag. There was nobody murdered here in Scotland, but there certainly was a lot of hearts broken and a lot of lives upset.
What family members are near you now?
Cousin and 2 sister-in-laws, all 3 of them living together in a row over there. And then my daughter lives in the next house.
Okay.
After that, they have Tristine. Then the next house is Mark Mason.
The Masons.
And then my grandson lives in the next house.
It's like a family reunion every day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Above all, and in spite of the hardships, faith, love, and lineage keeps them going.
It is rare to see a community with so many family members concentrated in one area, but that is Scotland, and they are having to come together in a new campaign to try and save it. But to understand this journey, you have to learn about the first campaign.
Yeah, and that's it.
Yep, that is my family. So, you know, it's really important for us in the urban area to understand our family dynamic, our family structure. Oh, thank you, Felicia. She's driving and listening. Thank you. Namaste to you as well. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you. To understand where you come from. Because I don't think I would be sometimes as cynical as I am if I knew that. Because sometimes I expect the worst. I expect people to ghost me. I expect people to not return my call. I expect people to do those things because it's sort of embedded in me how I grew up to be invisible. And in order for people to really see me, I feel like sometimes I have to yell, I have to scream, and I can't do that anymore. I can't, I'm not a yeller, I'm not a screamer. I don't like being around that environment, you know, and I'm not forcing my way and trying to over yell and overpower, in a sense, you know, ignorance. And ignorance from people who don't know I exist. So that is a piece of history of who I am as Dr. Lisa LaCon. I believe I am the first one in my family to have a PhD. I am the first one at Rutgers University the first Black person in Rutgers University to have a PhD in psychiatric rehabilitation. I would say I'm the first person, Black female, or just Black person on the planet to have a PhD in psychiatric rehabilitation, because Rutgers is the only program with a PhD. And I don't tout that enough. I don't wear it on my sleeve. I just want people to treat me just based on, but sometimes I see the ugly side of people when they don't know who you really are and what you possess. So that was very sobering to me. Every time I hear about William Dove, my great grandfather, I pass that information on to my children. I want them to pass that information on because it is important. It is so important to understand where you came from. And now in my family, when they said they didn't have like running water and stuff like that. I don't know if my grandfather and grandmother, when they moved to DC, because when they moved to DC, they had a very nice home. But again, eminent domain knocked that house down to build a school. And then they moved to Upper Northwest, where I was raised in DC. Okay. So it's a lot,
Yeah. All right. Well, just before we get into the recap real quick, just say that again with your PhD at Rutgers, and just say that again.
I am the first African-American Black person to graduate with a PhD in psychiatric rehabilitation.
All right. Could you do one more thing?
Yes.
Ring the bell.
Oh!
See, you're supposed to ring the bell when you said that.
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about that.
Yeah, that's why I just wanted to get to
that was
ring that bell.
Feat, and a very incredible feat. And sometimes, as a Black woman, you forget your accomplishments. Yeah. You forget your accomplishments. And sometimes people aren't going to remind you. You have to remind yourself. Sometimes you have to, as that song says, encourage yourself in the Lord. Encourage yourself. Know your worth. Know what you are made of and walk in it.
All right. Well, in relationship to recapping,
Oh, yes.
songs there.
Right. Yes. So at the beginning of the month, we had the Grammys, and it was this whole big hoo-ha thing. It was Taylor Swift versus Beyonce. Then Jay-Z made a speech. And then I don't know if I said this to you, but I said to somebody, as a result of Jay-Z's speech, I think they're going to come after him. I don't know. I don't know who the them are, but I just feel it. I think he's going to be under the gun.
Okay. And so, but that goes back to, people, getting their rewards or whatever, that so people were getting their Grammys at the beginning of the month. And you said, what was the thing with Taylor Swift?
So
did she get an award?
Yeah, she got, I think, Best Album or something.
Okay.
And then when she went up there to talk about, to congratulate people, they were saying that she pushed Celine Dion out the way. Pushed her over. But then there's slap her. Well, that is true. But I do understand and know that Celine Dion is very ill, very fragile. Okay. I do know that. So at that moment, I don't think she could have been hugged, but still she didn't even acknowledge her. She didn't do just something like something. And then she talked about the release of her next album.
Okay.
So we talked about that. And then what else did we talk about?
Well, Killer Mike was there, and he got.
Oh, that's right. He got arrested. Oh my gosh, yes. He won 2 Grammys
or 3. I think it might have been 2 or 3.
And then got arrested. They carted him off in handcuffs. I mean,
It was actually 2 pairs of handcuffs they had to put behind his back.
because he's
Like they
too
had,
big.
yeah. So you know how they do that with big people? They make 2 handcuffs together and then they put them like that. Because I guess they didn't want him to be too choked up back then. That would have looked crazy.
So they sized him up.
Yeah.
They sized him up for the handcuff kill. But I think everything was pretty much done. I think, as a result of that, I think he said that he remained very humble.
Okay.
And then somebody was in the hospital and his family that needed a transfer, and they got the transfer that night, or so. It was just, that whole night for him was like, oh my gosh, that's a night that he will never forget.
You don't think they had anything to do with that?
No.
Okay. That
But-
wasn't one of them rituals or something?
Well, I don't
Humiliation
know.
rituals?
But some of the lessons that I learned from that is it's good to be humble.
Mm-hmm.
It is. It's very good to be humble and to remain humble. Remember we did our program on meekness?
Yeah.
That was very good.
Yeah, about Haile Selassie.
Yes. Very meek individual who was ultimately very powerful in his meekness. And oftentimes we look at meekness as a weakness. And it really isn't when you think about it. You have the opportunity to see people for who they are when you're in that position of being humble and being meek. You really do. It's very powerful. Very powerful. It's sort of like my daughter called me the undercover boss. She's like, oh, you're like the undercover boss.
Oh.
Like, okay, yeah, I guess so. Because sometimes I do this on purpose. I'm going to say this. I really do. I'm very strategic, and sometimes I carry myself in a way that no one would think that I'm a business owner, multiple homes we own. I have a PhD, 4 children that are, very successful. One, he graduated from Cornell University. He's getting ready to graduate law school. I'm just very humble, and I see people for who they are when they don't know who I am. And I make note of that. And then I steer clear of them. Because typically they're not authentic and they're users.
Okay, well, how much of that would you credit to going to a HBCU?
Well, interesting enough, like I said, we went to the Virginia Black Film Festival that was held at Hampton University. And I have to say, Hampton University was one of the first places that I went to where people saw me. Whether it was my professor, Dr. Dogby, I will never forget, he was my sociology advisor, Dr. Corsi Dogby. I looked him up, but unfortunately he died last January. And he was my advisor, and he thought that I should go on to graduate school in anthropology. Now, I could see me being an anthropologist, but I wasn't focused back then. I wasn't focused. He was sort of like a cheerleader of mine. And he had written a book on sociology, and he was the first person to ever say, you need to have an orgasm in a book.
Oh my Lord.
No, not
I ain't never heard of that. I ain't never heard
No, he told his class, like, when you find a good book to read,
Oh Lord.
like, it will, release
In your
what'd you say?
in your mind though, right? Like
Yes, in your mind. Like, you can't put it down. You don't want to put it down. You don't want to close it. You don't want it to end.
that's an interesting quote there.
Well, it's an interesting analogy. It definitely is. And everyone in the class, we just fell out laughing.
Yeah, see, I would have
Like,
laughed too.
oh my God, like, what is he talking about? But as a child, that's what I did. I laughed, I snickered. All of us did in the sociology class. But as an adult, I totally understand when you find that good book, or when you find that thing that like drives you to continue to keep doing it and doing it and doing it, you know, don't stop. Right. So HBCU Greatness, we had William S. Parrish, and he's the founder of HBCU Greatness. And every year they do this, it's sort of like, you know how football players, when they have a signing day. So every year they do a signing day, and then he raises funds for students to attend HBCUs. So that would be Hampton, Howard, Norfolk State, Bennett, Spelman, Morehouse, Fisk, Tuskegee, whatever. There's so many HBCUs out there, Alabama State University, so many HBCUs out there. And unfortunately, we cannot financially compete with some of the predominantly white institutions, the PWIs.
All right, well, I got some clips from him if you want to just react to what he's saying and stuff like that.
Okay.
Daughter is the best thing about going to a black school is actually going to a black school.
Yes.
So to be in Zoom at Hampton or Howard, it just feels like so much is missing.
Right.
But I'm glad that she and others had a chance to get restored, if you will, and get back to campus life, because that's what college is all about.
Right. And I think, you know, you just mentioned something, and it stems to being social connected, like that social connectedness. When I went to Hampton, you know, I met, you know, someone Black from Iowa. Like they're not just in New York or, you know, it's all over the Caribbean.
Virgin Islands, right? How many people did you meet from the Virgin Islands?
Yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You know,
and you know, it's so interesting because we were talking about the full experience of being at a HBCU. And unfortunately, during the pandemic, a lot of students did not experience the full experience because they had classes via remote, classes with Zoom or whatever. So they were not on campus. And I have to say, some of the best 4 years of my life happened as a result of going to Hampton. I had such a wonderful time. I had so much fun. I really did. It was challenging getting in the school because initially, I'll tell you guys, my urban nights, I was rejected. I was rejected at first. They said, Lisa Williams, we don't want you here. We don't need you here, because I applied too late in the process. And at that time, the incoming class of 87, at that time, we had one of the largest enrollments. And I attribute that to the Cosby Show. Because
and a different world, maybe too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and a different world. And you see the importance of those images on TV.
Everybody wanted to go to college. Like all the Black people wanted to go back to college.
Yes.
Also, too, school days, right? Like when did that come out?
That came out in 87, 88. I think I was a freshman. That came out. But still, that whole thing.
It was about Black colleges and education and stuff like that. Different world, and the Cosby Show were very important, man. But, you know.
Very, very important. And as a result, we had one of the largest incoming classes back then. I'm sure it has increased, but I applied too late, and it was like, nope, you can't get in. But you know, I had to reject the rejection. I did some crying. Some calls were made, and I got in.
Oh,
I did the
the puppy eyes and stuff like that. Now, I can't see, because of the way this thing looks, I can't see the titles of these, but you do speak about some of that type of stuff in here as well. Let's just run through a couple of these real quick.
From as far as Philadelphia and Connecticut, attend signing day, but primarily it's New Jersey. We've already had partners. We've had Major League Baseball come in and introduce what it's like to work at Major League Baseball and their internship program. We've had May writing from Yahoo. as well as internship opportunities with Yahoo. We've had the same with PSE&G, who's one of our founding partners and donors to date on what it's like to have an internship or even externship, they call it sometimes, with an organization like PSE&G, not necessarily related to STEM. So not only are we teaching them how to network and do business development, because so many of the younger generation, social media has changed the way they look at relationships.
And that is true. And one of the things that being in Hampton is so interesting because I'm going, navigating through the streets. And I remember my internship was downtown Hampton, working at the probation office. And then look where I am now with doing the work with Blessed Ministries. Working with the reentry population, working with those that are coming home who have been, in prison for 30 years, 35 years, and they were convicted of, some heinous crimes. But that was my major then. And on Facebook, someone asked, based on your major, are you doing what your major was? And I can honestly say yes and no.
Right. Because it's related. It's related.
It's related. Absolutely. It's related. And I took enough classes, I believe English, because I enjoyed writing. So I do write grants. So it's sort of, it's related. And so the lesson learned is definitely give back. It's important to give back. It's important to extend your hand to help other people out, whether it's $5, whether it's $10, whether it's $20, whether it's 50 cents, something, $1. It really is, because I am a firm believer of what goes around comes around. I am a firm believer of that.
I think you guys talked about that. Let me see if this one.
So when folks see us out there, they can support our events. We have our signature event is HBCU Signing Day, which is always the first Saturday in June. Any student in the area who can get to us, as long as they've committed to an HBCU, come down for free and get celebrated.
Now they have to bring a letter or something. What do they?
We don't ask for anything other than their commitment. Most of the time they come with a parent.
Okay.
And sometimes it's, 2 or 3 friends with another family. But for the most part, we take them on their commitment. You going to FAMU? Okay. Good. We don't ask to see your acceptance letter or anything like that. But what we do ask for after we kind of shower you and support you and get your information and get your pledge with your parent is to commit to the program.
Okay.
So if you plug in, you can be great.
I love that. If you plug in, you can be great.
Right. Now, y'all talked about funding a little bit too, and I think like maybe the lack of funding too a little bit.
Happening on a federal level with HBCU funding.
With funding, I could tell you more probably about what's happening that is holding the funding.
Okay.
Right. Maybe that's part of your question. So we are sunsetting, right? You know how things happen for a season.
Right.
And we had great focus on diversity and inclusion during the pandemic and the civil unrest and the murder of George Floyd. Corporate interests wanted to get behind this thing. Not unlike the civil rights movement, where Essence was started and Black Enterprise was started. There was a movement to give them something that they can have so that they can, I don't know, stay out of our stuff or feel real good about what they're doing in their community.
But he's making a very good point, because what's happening is they're holding the money back from HBCUs, and what they're doing is they are redistributing it in other areas and to other areas. So that's why it's really important for us to, as alumni, alumnus, all of the alums, to give back, and sometimes you can do monthly give back. And I know times are very tough, but so the HBCU funding is in a sense kind of shrinking.
Yeah. Now, I think this is the one y'all was talking. Let's see. Is this the one y'all talking about?
This is the mission of HBCU Greatness.
Okay.
So our mission really is to be a bridge between corporate institutions and our HBCU community in an effort to defeat the achievement and the wealth gap. Right. We believe that, not only getting kids to school, but helping them to be great, meaning staying in school. Right.
Staying in school and graduating.
You're being transported back.
That's important. Not only for them to enter, but to remain, and then for them to graduate. Because that's what you want. You want a very high graduation rate for your school. You don't want a low graduation rate. That does not look good. That means, well, are the kids dropping out, or what's happening? Like, I don't know. So you definitely want to, talk about that and have programs that will assist them along the way. And one thing I can say that I did not understand or know when I was in undergrad is definitely use your career center. Now, I know Rutgers, if you are a graduate, an alum of Rutgers, you can always go back to your career center. I don't know if Hampton is like that, but most schools are like that. That if you graduated from a university, you have access to their career center. I know George Washington University is like that. I used to work at George Washington University for a couple of years while I went to Hampton, like my summer job, my Christmas holiday job was at George Washington University in the payroll department. So career centers, tap into those career centers. Parents, tell your students to tap into the career centers because they will assist with the resumes, which is very important. They will assist with interview skills, which is very important. And one of the things that I think this generation is going to have a very hard time with, or more of a challenge with, is networking in person and really going out there and talking to people, talking with people, because this generation is so focused on a tablet or
online
or online
texting people.
Right, texting. So this generation is really going to have to, like, say for instance, if I were a professor in one of my classes, I would have a networking exercise for my students to engage in, because I think that's very important. And as an educator, and I can say as an educator because I work with Rutgers students as their supervisor, as an educator, and when I was a stay-at-home mom, I had my own little family daycare, right? I can say that as an educator, I always wanted to have my students learn while having fun. I think that is key. So things like that, rather than just the textbook and the ditto sheets and the stuff like that, have these hands-on experiences to go out there and to, practice networking. I think in any major, one of the things that you have to do, I think, is practice networking. I say that except for computer scientists. I don't think they, I think they don't have to, because they're a little.
Easy there.
I know. Y'all a little weird. Y'all be staying in y'all little cave and.
But you think that, like, this generation is a little bit more socially awkward, though, because you think it's not strictly because of the pandemic, but that helped it, but because they was already on their phones and stuff.
I think the pandemic exacerbated it.
but
Yes.
they were already kind of like that.
Yes, I think it exacerbated their socially being awkward.
Yeah.
And I think now what we have to do is kind of, in a sense, kind of gently nudge them to do more networking. Because I was at an event last night where I invited some students to meet with a phenomenal woman. We went to school together. She's put out 10 movies. She was a former editor of Essence magazine.
Oh, okay.
Yes, just phenomenal. We all came through the ranks together, and I reached out to the dean of the school to invite the students. So the students were there, but it was only one student that asked a question.
Like, you just think that they were not good at, like, speaking in public, or like they were just a little uncomfortable with the situation?
Maybe uncomfortable. So that's why if I were a present day educator, I would have an exercise every time students came in my class.
Yeah.
So that they can be more comfortable with speaking. Now, I personally, myself, I don't like networking. I don't like it.
But you have to do it and stuff.
But
so.
I have to do it, and I don't like doing it. Now, I like doing it more when it's kind of organic. Like, you bump into somebody and you're like, oh, hey, but it doesn't happen that way all the time.
Okay, now, I mean, you're saying like some of the having the experiences and stuff like that, and that would help them be better at it. And we're going to talk about that with this last clip right here about homecoming and the importance of homecoming and stuff. Yes. But what do you think that's from? Like, why are they so different? Like, why are they so awkward now? Is it because of their phone and social media? Like, is that the reason why they're awkward?
I think so. I think so. I don't think they're really forced to interact with one another. We grew up outside playing. We did have video games, but we didn't have gaming per se.
Right, like it is now.
Right. Our gaming was tag, freeze tag, dodgeball, hopscotch. I haven't seen any kids really play
outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, like do they even know those games? Well, maybe they do them at school.
Well, remember, they even cut recess. They were doing budgetary cuts. And then they're talking about why our kids so obese. I'm like, hello, duh. Only thing they're doing is just sitting.
Yeah, and then they're also used to having fake personalities and stuff too. So they get lost in who they really are, like in real life, versus who they pretend to be when they're online, cussing each other out, playing video games and being so tough and acting crazy when they're online, just trolling people and saying all kinds of stuff and being whoever they want to be, versus once they get in real life, they're not really that person anymore. So they don't know what to say.
The filter is gone.
Yeah, so they don't.
There's no filter that you can walk around with, out in public. Like, what's the filter? You're going to carry a big screen to filter,
Yeah,
it's gone. So you can't, like you said, you can't pretend. You have to take off that mask.
Yeah. Well, and then, like you said, the pandemic exacerbated it, and I think you guys talked about that a little bit, maybe with the homecoming right here.
Okay.
And I believe it's you're being transported back to a time when you were like 19, which you were very impressionable. You had a great deal of fun, and you built these relationships in this place.
Yeah.
And it becomes a sacred place. And now you can go back and reconnect, and you got a little bit of money now.
Right. Right.
You got a little bit of money now, so you could go back and really have a good time as opposed to when you was there at 19.
Right.
That is so true, because I was just talking to someone, I can't remember, when we had homecoming here as a student, I really didn't participate in it because I didn't think it was for us, the students. Now it's a little different, but I remember we always had Naji perform. And we have this building, it's called Ogden Hall. And he used to always perform at Ogden Hall. Well, if I wanted to see Naji, which I really didn't, if I wanted to see him, I couldn't afford to see him. So I literally used to just sit outside of the steps and listen to him play.
So you mean when you were at school?
Yes, when I was like the freshman, sophomore, junior, whatever, when I was actually there. It seemed like they had Naji. You remember Naji?
I do remember that name. I don't remember exactly what he did, but was it like a jazzy type of thing or something like that?
Yeah, he blew a horn,
yeah.
saxophone, something.
Okay.
But I would just listen to him. But I really did not get involved in the homecoming activities. But now I love it.
I know, but you thought it was for the alumni though, right? Like you thought it was for the older people probably, right?
I did. Raquel said Naji every year, Raquel, right? Every single, I'm like, oh my God. And they did it like it would be a big surprise. And guess who we're having this year?
Naji. Is he from there or something? Is he from the area?
I don't know. Maybe he was inexpensive to have.
Oh, that's
no, I don't know, because I don't know. Or maybe he knew the previous president, Dr. Harvey. I don't know, but he was there every single year.
Wow. Okay, but like you said, it was you thought the at that time when you were in school, you felt like homecoming was more for the people that had already graduated and they were coming back. Yeah. But see, now you are one of those people, so it is for y'all.
And I'm walking slower.
So were there a lot of students there this last time?
Yes. Good evening, Raquel. Yay, Raquel. I missed most of the show, but I made it on. Yay. I'm glad you're in the urban suite, Raquel Aiken. What's happening? So yeah, a lot of students, they participate because now it's sort of like it's for both.
Okay.
It's for both. And I think what Hampton is doing, as well as hopefully a lot of HBCUs are doing, which it didn't dawn on me because I don't think it happened with my class, to talk about the importance of alumni giving as soon as you come in the school as a freshman. I think they're trying to do that now so that they can plant that seed when you graduate, by the time they graduate. But the unfortunate thing is, because HBCU funding is on hold and there's not that much funding, when students graduate, they're in so much debt. So it's really hard for students to actually give back because you're like, okay, my house, my rent, or give back to Hampton. That's like Hampton, catching the bus to work, Hampton, putting gas in the car. I'm in debt. Fannie Mae, whatever her name, Sally Mae, Fannie Mae, whatever it is. So it's sort of like, and this is why we need programs like HBCU Greatness.
Yeah.
To help us with that.
Well, I just lastly about the HBCUs though. I mean, I know as from going to a PWI, like for us when we were in school, our big thing was to go to like HBCU homecomings though. Like we wanted to go to Howard's homecoming and we would go down to Hampton or, anybody that was close to up here. That's where we would go. You know what I mean? Like to other people's homecomings and enjoy their, homecomings. So it was because it was much different than at Rutgers. Like at Rutgers, it's not like going to Howard. Homecoming.
Yeah, right.
It's not the same thing.
Yeah, no, it's not. I went with my best friend. She graduated from Duke, and we went to her homecoming, and it's very segregated in a sense because they have Black people go here, and she even said, "We're the BSU." I didn't even know what a BSU is.
Right.
Black student. Yes, the Black Student Union. I'm like, well, we just had a student union because everybody was Black. Like BSU, it was foreign to me what a BSU is. I'm like, BSU, what? So then, during her homecoming, the music.
Yeah, it would be kind of corny.
Yeah, it was.
So we love going to everybody else's. That's what we would do,
Yeah, it's fantastic. So yeah. All right, so what else we have up next?
And then lastly, we did this show.
Ooh, that one. My goodness. And this hearing is still going on, and it's getting murkier and murkier and murkier and murkier day by day by day by day. Oh, so I don't know. Like I said, this is a hearing with this Fani Willis, Fani. I heard one person say Fani. So I don't know what her name is. I don't know if it's Fani.
I'd rather call it Fani. I don't know why it's pronounced like that, but everybody says Fani Willis, I think. I don't know why they pronounce it like that.
I just call her D.A. Willis.
Yeah.
I call her DA Willis. That way I'm safe. DA Willis, I give her respect. She's the district attorney. Willis, I know how to pronounce Willis. I know how to say DA. So she's DA Willis to me because I'm not, it seems like, most of the Black people call her Fani, then some of the white people call her Fani. So
that's how it's spelled.
Right. And then they call her Fanny Pack. They have all these names. I just call her DA Willis. So basically, I believe the Nathan Wade's previous divorce attorney was on the stand today, I believe. And boy, I just tell you, he should have just said, I plead the fifth. I take the fifth, because he was just all over the place. And it was just like, oh my gosh. My lesson learned from DA Willis is not to be so reactive, and to understand how to respond. And I talk about this quite often, the difference between reacting and responding. When you react, you are engaging in a behavior without thinking about the consequences of that behavior versus responding. When you're responding, you have strategically thought out what could possibly happen as a result of you engaging in a behavior. And I have to say, people who react, a lot of people who react, and I'm not saying this is about DA Willis or whatever, but a lot of people who react versus respond, they end up in prison because they don't think through what their actions are going to, the end or the final result of their actions. So oftentimes when people just snap and pop and do whatever and then they're not thinking.
Yeah. You talked about it. We did a whole show about that.
Yeah. Right. We did an entire show about that. And I think because she reacted, I did not find what she said to be, she did an awesome job. No, I think she spoke too much. I think she should not have gone up there on the stand, I guess you call it. And I think, to be perfectly honest, we wouldn't be here if, listen to this, because Mr. Wade said something very interesting. According to him, there's a difference between being private and being secretive. So he said that the relationship was private, but it wasn't a secret. And it wasn't a secret because his mother knew, but it was private because he didn't disclose it to his colleagues.
He said it wasn't none of your business.
What?
He said it wasn't none of their business.
Right.
But I mean, he said people knew anyway, but
Now, the thing is, and this is according, and I agree with this is according to Judge Joe Brown. DA Willis could have had a meeting with the judge inside his chamber to say, listen, I am in a relationship with X, Y, and Z. What do you want to happen as a result of this? And at that time, it would be up to the judge to make the decision. But because they were private and because they were secretive and because, this whole thing, now look at where we are. And unfortunately, guess who is bearing the expense of this?
Go ahead, say it.
The taxpayers. The taxpayers are bearing the expense of this because DA Willis was not forthright in speaking about her relationship to the judge.
Okay.
So lesson learned is, I think there are several lessons in here. Don't be reactionary. Think before you speak, especially if you say that you withdrew $50,000 from your 401k and now the IRS can look to see if you pay taxes on that. Really think before you speak and listen sometimes to your legal counsel because her legal team did not want her to speak. She chose to do so on her own accord. And I don't know how the judge or which direction the judge is going to be in. From what I hear, the judge donated money into her campaign. So, Atlanta is becoming, well, I'm sure it has been, but like politics of Chicago, a lot of corruption and stuff. Atlanta is close behind it.
All right. Well, I don't know too much about Atlanta, but I do have a question for you.
Yes.
Who is Kelly Bowman?
Oh, she is coming in the Urban Suite next week. So Kelly Bowman, it's Kelly Bowman, not Kelly Rowland. So let's get that. It's Kelly Bowman.
Oh, yeah, they're going to get that. Okay.
Kelly Bowman is Dr. Sebi's daughter. Now, are you familiar with Dr. Sebi?
I have heard of his stuff. Yeah, he does like medicine and like health
holistic healing and stuff like that. So she is continuing his legacy of the holistic properties of, nutrients, healing, all of that stuff. And we're going to talk about, this is very interesting, how our thought life impacts and affects our gut life. Do you know your thoughts affect your gut?
Yeah, it affects your whole body.
Affects your whole body and your gut.
Stress levels, anxiety.
Absolutely. And then as a result of that, oftentimes we overeat or we undereat and we do not get the proper nutritional value. And then as a result of that, all of these metabolic issues can occur, hypertension, diabetes, being overweight, obesity, all of these things as a result of our thought life. Like I said, when I'm very stressed and sort of like depressed, not depressed, clinically depressed, but when I'm down, I don't like to eat.
Right.
Their food does not do anything for us.
Doesn't appeal.
No, not at all. Yeah. Just the thought, like, maybe ice cream, but.
But like, regular medicine and regular, doctors and stuff are not necessarily for the holistic approach to healing and stuff like that. You're not going to get necessarily this type of stuff in the hospital. Like the stuff that
absolutely, that is correct.
They're not going to tell you the same thing she's saying.
Now, this is my opinion. YouTube, Facebook, all the platforms, this is my opinion. I believe that the medical industry would prefer for us to be ill rather than healthy.
Yeah.
Illness brings in more money.
Consumer, yes.
That is correct. And we are a capitalistic society. And why would you want people not to get sick? How are you going to get your money?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean,
So hopefully y'all going to talk about some of those issues though next week, right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Now, of course, we have to be careful because they will try to ban you. And you remember during the pandemic, you couldn't say certain things and you couldn't say a prick. You couldn't say shit. I mean,
yeah. So we have to look up the keywords not to say, I think.
Right. Exactly. Because they're like, you can't, they won't distribute it.
But though, on the flip side of that, there are a bunch of charlatans and stuff peddling a bunch of remedies and stuff that really don't do anything for you.
Right. There are.
Because like all these supplements or certain things that people be having, the pills and stuff, promoting sponsoring their shows and stuff like that. That's a very, big prevalent thing on YouTube.
People not only YouTube, but in the GNC store.
Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I would hope that they were giving you legitimate products though, no?
All that stuff is
okay.
I think the healthiest thing, and I'm horrible. I'm trying to grow these herbs here and they're just not growing. I think the healthiest thing is to have your own garden.
Yeah.
Because even they slap this organic stuff on food and it's not really organic. They have seedless watermelon. Who wants to eat seedless water? How organic is a seedless watermelon?
Yeah, well, I mean, it grew somewhere, evidently, I guess.
In a lab. No, thank you.
Yeah. I mean, they have a lot of different programs now where you can, like, see, we used to just go to the health food store. It was like one health food store, and it wasn't GNC though. But they have more of these corporate programs, like corporate holistic stuff now. Like, because I guess that's what GNC is. Like, you know, they have a lot of these products and stuff that are probably made in a factory, but they call them like holistic medicines and supplements and stuff like that, but they're probably not.
Exactly.
They're not
like,
really
is that
organic.
Really spring water? Like,
right,
is there a little boy
holding
water. The canteen and the spring water and putting it in a bottle and doing that all day?
On the picture, it looks like that. On the picture on the bottle, it's a little boy with the pail, and you get to a real clear spring and stuff like that. But it'd be like Nork water though.
Right, it's all optics. It's all optics. Yeah. So she'll be on next week, and then we have an interesting young woman that I met at the Virginia Black Film Festival. She's an author and a filmmaker, and she wrote a book called, I don't have an image now, but it's called Sullied Bride. And I'm going to invite her into the Urban Suite later in the month of March. It should be really, really good because she's going to discuss the roles of men and women from a biblical perspective, and also discuss the domestic violence in the church and how first ladies are being physically abused and no one's saying anything.
Well, also too, what about your other friend with the 10 movies? What about her? Why can't we get her up in the Urban Suite?
Oh yes, maybe.
She talk about her films and stuff. She sounds like Tyler Perry or somebody.
Oh, I think she's
female.
Much more than Tyler Perry.
Now, here's some quick little, before we wrap up, here's some quick little entertainment news maybe too. What did you hear about his movie, that Mea Culpa, that came out on Netflix?
I actually saw it.
But people been panning it. What did you think?
It was the dumbest movie.
Yeah, people do not like it. People were saying it was terrible.
The acting was awful. And I'm thinking this man was a billionaire. Yeah, speaking of Kelly Rowland.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, Kelly Rowland.
And he's a billionaire and he can't write a movie.
Billionaire. I'm like, what? You can't get caliber actors? Like, are you that cheap? Like, you get what you pay for. Like, they were having a scene with all this paint and the bodies together, and
really?
And the plot was stupid.
No, that's what they were saying. They were saying it was more of the writing. It was the and they said he wrote it or whatever.
It was so shallow.
He should just pay for a good writer. Like, he got enough money, just pay for some writers or something. Let somebody else write it.
Oh gosh, and someone to do good casting. You know, like I said, sometimes you get what you pay for. Maybe that's why Taraji P. Henson, maybe they're thinking that everybody's like her. Like the
caliber. Her caliber.
Right. Like Kelly Rowland.
She was not good? Kelly Rowland was not good?
She was all right. I mean, she's Kelly Rowland.
I saw one scene where she was like with the maid, and the maid pushed the cart over on her and stuff.
It was not convincing to me.
For real? Okay.
It was not convincing. I can tell that she is not a trained actress.
Oh, really? Okay.
Oh, yes. Now, singer?
Yeah.
Yes. Acting?
No.
And the guy, I don't know what his name is, that played opposite her, the artist that played opposite her.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Only thing I saw was his glutes moving up and down.
Lord. They had his naked butt on the TV?
Yeah, see, I didn't say that.
Well, you trying to be all mysterious about it. It's after 8 o'clock. You can say well, maybe that's why people might want to watch it. I don't know. But Tyler, look, he has had some good stuff, I think. He's had one or two
Well,
good ones,
well,
like that one when they were in the cabin and all the couples and stuff, like the couples, and they went.
Well,
Janet Jackson was in it.
Yeah, the acting was pretty decent.
Yeah,
That's what
that
I'm
one was
saying.
a
They
good
had
movie. That was all
They
right.
had Jill Scott. Why did I
Jill
get married?
Scott,
And why did I get married? Right. The acting
That
was
was
decent.
good.
Yeah, but this crew, I just didn't like
It's not
that.
it.
And then he had one character that was the same character that was in the Haves or Haves Not. She played the
Really?
same type of character. I'm like, come on, can she stretch beyond just that? You know, that role and that type of mean villainous character.
Oh, okay, that one.
So it was like, and I watched it because I have to say the promotional ad of the good, you know, Kelly Rowland. Kelly Rowland is very beautiful.
Yeah, everybody was talking about it last week. Yeah.
And the clothes that she had on there, sharp. I don't know the fashion person that did the wardrobe design or whatever. I really enjoyed her wardrobe. I was more intrigued with the wardrobe. I was like, oh, I would look good in that. Oh, I would look good in that. Oh, that is hot. I was like, oh my God.
He did something right. He did something right.
He did something right.
Yeah.
That as well as the people that do the background, like the
sets and everything.
The set design.
The
set design was really nice. Like the guy's
it
apartment.
Looked good. Yeah,
I'm like, oh, that is a beautiful apartment. The exposed brick walls, the artwork on the wall, the plant. I was looking at that more than the characters in the movie. So when I do that, when I look more at the fashion
and the scenery,
and the people are just,
oh, that's terrible.
That's terrible.
Yeah, they panned it, but now here's the last thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I know you heard and saw this. You must have seen this, the Wendy Williams documentary.
I haven't seen it yet,
but you've seen the clips and stuff.
I've seen some of the clips, and from what I understand, she has frontal something dementia,
like Alzheimer's type of thing. Yeah, she was like
an aphasia. She has I don't know if you all are familiar with aphasia, but it affects your language, your speech. It affects all of that. So it looks like you aren't able to articulate your words, and you're trying to capture the word, and you just can't get it.
Yeah.
And it's like your brain is shutting down. So then the son did come out and say that based on previous rehab, it looks like it's alcohol-induced dementia.
Yeah. And like there was clips of her talking about how she loves vodka and this and that, and there was a couple of really strange clips. You need to watch that so you can talk about it. But yeah, it was.
Now, what I did watch, I don't know if you aren't a TikTok person.
No.
But I did get hooked on that Risa Tisa.
What is that?
Oh, you don't know what Risa Tisa?
I'm not on TikTok like that, so I don't know.
Let me tell you, she had 51 parts.
What?
And it was called Who the F Did I Marry?
On TikTok?
On TikTok.
Is she black?
51. Yeah.
Okay.
51
clips, like different TikTok videos.
Yes, of her just talking. And sharing her story about her marriage with this man who she called a pathological liar. However, I did make a comment, and I can't remember what episode, but it was confirmed. I made a comment. I said, it appears as if he has schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
And in a further episode, she said that he was, according to the family, he was diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia. Now, if someone is diagnosed with bipolar and schizophrenia, sometimes it's schizoaffective disorder. So that can be both. And I talked about schizoaffective, I talked about schizophrenia, I talked about bipolar, and the symptoms that come along with it. And one of the telltale signs that like I said, I cannot diagnose, but I've been in the field. I can evaluate, I can assess, and based on my assessment, it may be, I thought schizophrenia. And I thought that because she was saying that he's a pathological liar. So he would be like on the phone, I'm taking this water bottle. talking to someone. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. All right. For real? Okay. Okay, bye. And no one's on the phone.
Oh, Lord.
But she didn't realize this. She just thought he was lying.
Oof.
Come to find out, those conversations that he had
were with nobody.
With no one.
Well, maybe he was having a conversation in his own mind, evidently.
He was.
Yeah, he would heard somebody
and
talking.
he literally heard people.
Yeah.
He literally heard people, and then he had delusions of grandeur, saying that he worked, he was a VP of a company. Remember we talked about that, delusions of grandeur, VP of a company. And when I talked about hallucinations, it affects your 5 senses.
Mm-hmm.
Your touch, your taste, your smell, what you see, and what you hear. So he was hearing things that it wasn't really there.
Mm-hmm.
So what she attributed to him lying, he really has a mental illness. He has a psychiatric disability. But she in the hood, and I say that in our Black community, we don't realize, because we talk about mental health. There's a distinct difference between mental health and a mental illness. And the difference is, if you manage your diagnosis of having a mental illness, then you are mentally healthy. Or if you don't have a diagnosis and you don't have symptoms of whatever it is based on duration, you are mentally healthy. However, if you aren't, in a sense, managing, controlling, and I hate saying controlling, but that's the word I can just, so people can understand, managing and controlling your mental illness. If it's uncontrollable and you're psychotic at that point, that's when you have that mental illness. And he went a long time without medication or anything. She didn't even know that he used to take medication.
Yeah, but the part you didn't get to was, like, in the community, a lot of people don't even get diagnosed, though. You know what I mean? They'll just have traits and they'll be doing stuff, and people might think they're a liar or whatever. But meanwhile, they had bipolar the whole time,
Right, or schizophrenia, right. Because he even said someone came to the house with a black car, and this man was looking for you. Well, you know what? In his mind, that may have happened.
Really happened, yeah.
Right, but it didn't happen because she looked on the neighbor's Ring camera, and there was no car. There was no one pulling in the driveway. There was no man. There was no, whatever.
But again, that's just like your boy, Beautiful Mind.
Oh, absolutely. And
that was like him. Yeah.
If you're not familiar with schizophrenia, definitely watch that movie with Russell Crowe, A Beautiful Mind, with Dr. John Nash. And I get so like, because I had the opportunity. He spoke at my my graduation. Dr. Nash, when he was there, I was like, oh my God, that's Dr. John Nash, brilliant man. And unfortunately, he and his wife were killed on the New Jersey Turnpike, coming from the Newark airport in a taxi cab.
Yeah.
But he had
that. Yeah.
He had that. He saw a little girl. Yeah. He always saw these 2 different men. Yeah. Right. Always. And then when someone new physically came in his life, he had to ask a student, do you see that person? And can you describe that person to me? Because it's so real.
Yeah. Like he had a friend from college that was never really there.
Never. That's right. Yeah. Never.
Knew this person for years, talked about everybody else knew of him and all that stuff. But that person never really existed.
Right. It is a brain disease, schizophrenia, and it should not be made fun of. It should not be taken lightly. I thank God that he did not have a paranoid type, because people that go into the realm of paranoia, they can be very dangerous, unfortunately, because they can assume that you are out to get them.
Right. They're seeing all types of stuff that's not there. But how many people you think are probably just running around undiagnosed? You know what I mean? Like even people that might be so-called committing crimes or whatever. Like they just might be undiagnosed schizoaffective disorders and stuff like that.
Right.
Like they're actually hearing stuff that's not happening and stuff.
Right. Absolutely. Hey, Leslie, on that, she says, indeed. Yes.
And you know what? The last thing is, did you ever tell everybody what happened to Astro the dog?
Oh.
Let's just remind them who Astro the dog is, and then
All
you
right.
can tell everybody what happened.
Okay. Well, shortly after that, Astro stopped working. Astro was stuck and just remained stuck. My husband got that Astro. Well, actually, Amazon reached out to my husband because this is a beta phase. They reached out to my husband to see if he would like to, have this robot thing, whatever. So, of course, he said yes, because he's a tech guy. He likes technology. He likes gadgets. He's a gadget guy. So Astro comes into the house. Astro was on fire for a couple of weeks. But then Astro, I don't know what happened. My friend Raquel says Astro you did something with Alexa, and then Alexa did something with Astro and shut Astro down. And I don't know, because Astro always stands by the refrigerator. And our refrigerator is Alexa is in the refrigerator. Like you say, Alexa, wake up, whatever. She's like, oh, look, good morning. So it's like, I don't know. So he had to ship Astro out. And then after, I think, a couple of weeks, a new Astro came. So we have Astro now, but Astro is being docked. Because Astro, let me tell you, Astro will run around your house, cause the house alarm to come on. And the lights to pop on.
Lights to come off.
Yeah, I don't have time for that. I know.
And then Astro gonna start doing his own thing. So AI gonna take over. So
yeah.
So you had to give Astro the axe a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Astro is just right on his little thing. And the first time we had Astro, this Astro 2.0, because the first one was 1.0, 2.0, I forgot to turn him off, and then he was roaming around the house. Then the alarm came off. Then the vent called us, and they were going to send the police to the house. I'm like,
you know what? But Astro was like Rosie the robot. He was supposed to be.
Raquel said the revolt is coming.
Yeah, see? You're going to get him back. You're going to get some more gadgets up in there. It's going to be somebody else take Astro's place.
Oh, gosh. Oh, Lord. So, yeah. Yes, so that was the recap of February 2024. We are entering into the third month of the year. Already. Now, typically in March, I have to say, my urbanites, I've been much better. But typically in March, this will be my first March in Virginia. But usually in March, I get a little like, oh my gosh, like a little depressed and like, oh. But it hasn't happened in a while. So we'll see how I do this coming March. Because remember, I talked about that in seasonal affective disorder, that my month of like, oh.
But just like Mr. Crawley was giving somebody some advice today, he was like, you got to know your triggers, though.
Right.
So once you know your triggers, then you can get past it.
Yes.
So that's going to happen.
That is correct. And that's why it's important for me to be near the water and, just to, the weather is a little warmer, but I know March is coming. So it's like, and I just thought about it. But,
Okay. Well, let's hope for the best.
Yes, hope for the best. Yes. So pray for me, my urbanites. March is coming, and March is a very long month. 31 days, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, 31 days.
Well, we have St. Patrick's Day to look forward to, right? And look, the spring is coming too. That's
right. Spring is coming. Spring is in what, 20-something days?
Yeah. So hey, we're almost.
Yeah, spring is coming. And down here was like in the high 60s, 67 degrees. So it's coming.
Yeah.
So yay. All right, my urbanites, thank you for entering into the Urban Suite with me, Dr. Lisa LaCon, where you will find me on Amazon, Amazon, iHeartRadio, Apple, LinkedIn, Facebook, of course, YouTube, Samsung, all of those platforms. So I just need you to like, share, tell someone. And then next week, we're having Kelly Bowman, Dr. Sabi's daughter, talking about her journey to health and wealth and all of that good stuff. So again, thank you for entering into the Urban Suite, where you laugh, learn, cry, and grow. And on that note, Molly, take us away.